Love him or hate him, there's no denying Joe Rogan is the king of podcasting. But how did he go from a stand-up comedian and a UFC commentator to the host of the world's biggest podcast? Today, we're breaking down the success of the Joe Rogan experience, from the analytics behind his massive reach to key moments that will define his career. Most importantly, we're going to look at what you can learn from his journey to apply to your own podcast. First, let's talk numbers. Joe Rogan didn't just stumble into podcasting greatness. His reach is mind-blowing. Now let's break down some of the stats. As of 2024, Rogan's podcast consistently averages around 11 million listeners per episode. And to put that in perspective, that's more than Game of Thrones' final season viewers per episode. He's doing it every week. His audience spans globally, and he dominates in both the US and international market. One of the biggest moments in Rogan's career was his exclusive licensing deal with Spotify in 2020. That reported $100 million deal was a game changer, not just for Rogan, but for the entire podcasting industry. He's no longer just a podcaster, he became the podcaster. And the move to Spotify allowed him to control his content while expanding his reach to Spotify's more than 450 million users. Rogan's episodes aren't your typical 30-minute podcasts. They often run 3 hours or more, yet he holds his audience's attention for the entire length. Rogan creates an engaging conversation, not just a scripted interview. He lets the conversation flow naturally, which draws listeners in and makes them feel like they're sitting in the room with him. And you can see now there are many copycats. Now let's zoom in on some of the key moments that really propelled Rogan's podcast to new heights and see what we can learn from it. One of the big ones was the Elon Musk interview. Rogan's 2018 interview with Elon Musk is one of the most iconic episodes in podcast history. It wasn't just the fact that Musk smoked a joint live on air. It was the way Rogan pulled out a deep philosophical insight from one of the world's most innovative minds. That episode alone has been viewed more than 60 million times on YouTube. So what can we learn? Rogan shows that it's not just about who you have on your show, but how you approach the conversation. Being able to extract those unexpected insights from high-profile guests keeps listeners hooked. In 2019, Rogan interviewed Bernie Sanders during the presidential primaries. And this episode solidified Rogan's influence in politics, as Sanders chose Rogan's platform over traditional news outlets. Rogan became known as a voice for open dialogue, giving space to both left and right-wing thinkers, and this helped him broaden his audience. Podcasters can learn from Rogan's ability to make his show a neutral ground for different perspectives. He lets his guests talk, he gives them space, and this non-confrontational approach has made his podcast a trusted place for controversial and important conversations. Then in 2020, Rogan made headlines with his exclusive deal with Spotify. This was a landmark moment not just because of the money involved, but because it showed the true value of podcasting as a medium. The move to Spotify also allowed Rogan to control his content without worrying about YouTube censorship. This shows the power of building your brand to a point where you can make strategic decisions about distribution. Rogan didn't start on Spotify, but by the time he moved, he'd built enough leverage to make it a win-win deal. So what makes Joe Rogan's podcast such a juggernaut? Let's try and unpack the formula for his success. Authenticity. We know this one. First and foremost, Rogan is authentic as you can be. He doesn't pretend to know everything. He's not overly polished. His genuine curiosity is one of the reasons people love tuning in. He's not afraid to ask dumb questions, and that makes his show feel relatable. And as a podcaster, don't be afraid to show your real self. If you're genuinely interested in your topic and your guests, your audience will feel that. Authenticity breeds loyalty. Diverse topics. Rogan doesn't stick to one niche. One day he's talking to a scientist, the next he's chatting to a comedian or a UFC fighter. His open-ended topics allow for endless interpretations and appeal to a broader audience, and that's why he's able to get such a diverse range of guests and listeners. When choosing your podcast topic, make sure it's broad enough to keep things fresh but still relevant to your audience. The more flexibility you have, the longer you can keep your show interesting. Man, another key to Joe Rogan's success is consistency. He has been podcasting for over a decade, starting in 2009, and his relentless schedule of producing multiple episodes a week has built him an enormous backlog of content. And this long-term approach is crucial. You need patience and a long-term vision. Rogan didn't become the world's biggest podcaster overnight. Consistently producing content and building your audience bit by bit over time is how you'll eventually hit your stride. Let's recap on how you can apply Rogan's success strategies to your own podcast. Focus on authenticity. Don't try to copy everybody else. Just bring your own voice and style to the table. Choose open-ended topics. Pick topics that have room to grow and evolve. Rogan's podcasts work because it's not boxed into one niche. He can talk about MMA one day and space travel the next. Think about how you can create that kind of flexibility in your show. And most importantly, be patient and play the long game. Patience is key. Rogan's massive success didn't come overnight. He consistently put in the work for years before hitting it big. Keep going, even when it feels like you're not getting the results you want right away. So whether you love him or hate him, Joe Rogan has shown the world what's possible with podcasting. Authenticity, consistency, and an open-minded approach to topics are your keys to success and his. And the best part, use these strategies for your own podcast and carve out your own success story. Hit me up in the comments, leave me a review, find me on Instagram, subscribe on my channel.
Break down the doors, you hold back.